Anthem is the worst game in history and further proves that EA is the Antichrist, and it finally taught me the invaluable lesson that I should never, ever, ever pre-order a game, because it turns out that companies sometimes bend the truth or just outright lie in order to make as much money as possible off a project. Who would have thought? Nah, I'm just kidding. I didn't pre-order this game. I don't think I've pre-ordered a game since Halo 3 came out when I was in the 7th grade. People seem to have this obsession with being the first to have something. People wait in line to see a movie at midnight, they camp out to buy a new phone, or they pre-order a game so they can be the first to beat it. Seems pretty juvenile, and if you get burned by getting an inferior product, I just don't feel bad for you, no matter how many false promises a developer made. If you just waited a week, you'll be able to tell if a game is worth it to you. It's not really a hard lesson to learn, but it seems like little gamer boys and girls need to be reminded of this every 6 months. Battlefield 4, Assassin's Creed Unity, No Man's Sky, Mass Effect Andromeda, Fallout 76, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, and the list could go on and on and on. If you still haven't learned the lesson, I don't know what to tell you. This game was made by BioWare. They've made some pretty good RPGs in the past, but RPGs really aren't my thing personally, so I haven't played any of their games. Well, except I did play Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic when I was in like the 3rd grade, but I can't say that that really qualifies as me playing the game. People's big issue though is the publisher, EA.
It doesn't have anything with the EA shit going on, with the loot box and stuff. No.
Thank God this slogan isn't specific to their EA Sports line, where every year's release is simply an updated roster clamoring for another $60. Maybe if 66 to 75% of EA's typical game budget wasn't focused in the marketing department, we'd actually have new features, better gameplay, and more original releases.
If you ever hear of your favorite development studio being purchased by EA, make sure you say your goodbyes, because chances are it's just a matter of time.
If you ever look into anything about this company, you'll find a huge amount of hate related to their practices on DLC, loot boxes, day one patches, treatment of developers, studio acquisitions, etc., etc., etc. It led to them being voted the worst company in America 2 years in a row in 2012 and 2013, all because of the ending of a stupid space dating simulator. I just want to point out here, there are companies that scam people out of money, use sweatshop labor, go bankrupt just to save the upper echelon employee's salary, companies that ban unions, but our little gaming hobby is much more serious than all that. EA is the worst company in America. That must be the truth. Now, of course, there's companies that do way worse things all over the world, but for us gamers, oh boy, that's really, really important. Now, they clearly forced BioWare into a shitty corner with the game model, and the engine, and the crunch, and all those things do actually suck. But they aren't actually the Antichrist, believe it or not. They're just a company doing what companies do, which is trying to make as much money as possible. And really, that shouldn't surprise us anymore. Anyway, I didn't play Anthem until a year and a half after it came out, and I bought it used from GameStop. Gross. For $5. I have no experience with this game at launch, so if I say something and then somebody says, well, that didn't work when the game came out, I really don't care. I'm talking about the game that I reviewed and that I played, and I'm sure it was updated quite a bit. The story is basically a shitty fantasy novel but set in the future with robots instead. I tried to pay attention during the cutscenes, but honestly, I don't have a fucking clue what was going on. There's some type of clan war between robot boys, and there's an ultimate power that could destroy the entire world. Everything has names that sound like a random sci-fi name generator came up with them. You have to stop the Heart of Rage in your javelin, while the evil Dominion tries to do something else. That's all you really need to know. It's pretty bad. It feels cheesy, but also it doesn't make any sense. I understand that in these looter shooters, the world gets built up through other means rather than just like a storyline with cutscenes. but this one felt especially bare. I will be honest with you though, I didn't even beat the game. I'll get to why in a second. I did, however, watch the rest of the storyline on YouTube. I guess there were some interesting characters as the game continued on, but there were lots of forgettable people like this guy, or this guy. But Owen's storyline and the bond between Halleck and your character do have some redeeming moments. Overall, though, the plot takes a backseat to the rest of the game, which I guess is the way it was supposed to be. In a perfect world, you want the plot of a game to complement the gameplay experience. This game attempts to do that, but this game suffers from what all looter shooters struggle with, which is a repetitive mission loop that feels disconnected from the hub world and the cutscenes. You just hear someone giving you random tasks to go there, kill that, stand in this area, find that thing, and then you get loot. That's what the game's about, not the drama with the monitor or whatever. I like to think of video games as movies rather than television shows. In a movie, everything should be self-contained. You don't need to explain something in a later season or with later DLC or with random lore drops scattered throughout the world. The plot of a movie is presented to you in a way that anyone can understand it if they pay attention. A game like this treats the plot more like a TV show, where they set the groundwork and then they will explain more about the world and the lore and all that stuff later on, or through ancillary items. I hate that because it feels like it leaves me as the player in the dark, and it puts more onus on me to have to do the work to actually figure out what the hell's happening. I never really know what's going on, and so the story missions just turn into random chores. I also don't really like the looter-shooter genre and the game loop, so then the end game is not really a reward in the long run. I just wanted to invest in the story, but games like this don't allow me to, and it's really fucking annoying. I do want to point out though, there are some good things about this game. I heard a lot about how it was such a spectacular failure when it first came out, but I was pleasantly surprised with quite a bit of it. For instance, the graphics are really good. The controls feel tight, the flying mechanics are probably the best I've ever played in a game. I remember playing this old game called Dark Void, which was on the Xbox 360, and it was essentially trying to do the same thing with flying, but it was so horrible and impossible to control that I ended up just giving up on the game whenever I played it. Flying in this game feels right, and even though in the long run it just becomes a system to sort of travel to shoot more brain-dead enemies, it was one part of the game that really stood out as a strong point. I went into this game with basement expectations. I heard about all the backlash after the game came out, so I was expecting just a dumpster. But even on my shitty Xbox One, the game looked really good. The shooting was basically fun, at least for a while. When I first started, I did have a tendency to just basically run into a group of enemies and frantically smash the melee button, and my character would just jump around and kill them all. It felt like there was no skill involved, and that really didn't change as I kept on playing. So, nice. Fort Tarsis is the hub world of the game that you get dropped into after a little intro cutscene fighting evil monsters in your robot supersuit. The fort is confusing layout-wise, and you will probably get lost. They also chose to make it in first person when the rest of the game is in third person. This mirrors Destiny, but it kind of lacks purpose. It just feels weird. The characters and items that you find are kind of pointless too. They're supposed to act as world building, but it's all just so shallow. You can tell the developers wanted to include this stuff, but they could not actually make it fit into the plot line for any reason. Instead, they just made it a note that the player might pick up on accident. It's classic tell rather than show, which is generally bad storytelling. You're involved in the story as the player because so much of it takes place as dialogue between pointless characters in the hub world. Sometimes you have dialogue options to choose from because, BioWare makes RPGs, but they literally don't matter at all. They just slow down the interactions. I quickly realized that these conversations were pointless, so I just smashed the skip button and then just choose a random dialogue option. It seriously didn't matter at all. I suppose it was BioWare trying to stick to their RPG roots, but it really has no place in a game like this. They need to focus their design on doing the rest of the game right rather than tacking on random RPG elements like this. The loading times in this game weren't very good, but they also weren't as bad as I thought they would be from what everyone said. I will admit, the loading in the middle of a mission does get really annoying, but but I expected to notice it much more from what I heard when the game was initially released. Maybe they came back and fixed it later, or maybe it just never was as bad as people were saying. When a game like this fails on some level, everybody wants to pile on, so they end up nitpicking everything about it. Kinda like what I'm doing. Oh no. The matchmaking in this game is kind of weird, because it basically just strong arms you into playing with others. All the side missions are dead, so you have to play them alone if you are solo without people that you know. These games are best experienced with other people, but oh well, I don't have any friends. Main missions have people, but it doesn't improve the experience. It just makes it a clusterfuck. There are more enemies, but that doesn't make the combat any more fun. Every person is just sprinting to get through the mission as quickly as possible. Frankly, I was surprised to be able to play with anyone, especially in the early missions, but I did generally find a group of people pretty quickly for the main story missions. Games like this are supposed to be played with a group of friends, but no one is going to sign up to play Anthem with me. And it's not like it made it any more fun. About halfway through my time playing this game, I bought a gun randomly, and then it just destroys. I didn't even mean to, but it just sort of happened. I was just seeing what I could buy in Fort Tarsis, and apparently I bought a legendary gun. He ended up just kind of ruining the game for me. I could kill pretty much every enemy in like 1 second, and then I spent the rest of my time just wasting everyone. I don't think that was intended to happen, but it's one of those details that you would hope the developers wouldn't add in. Don't let players buy the god tier weapon early in their playthrough, or else the game just turns into Duck Hunt. The straw that finally broke the camel's back for me was the 4 tombs with the Trials mission. I guess it's supposed to teach you about the open world aspect of this game, but that's when it all falls apart. Missions spawn too slow, they're glitched or broken, they don't spawn at all, and the game starts to break down here a lot. I hate games that make you just do chores, so the basic idea of the tombs makes me not want to play this game anymore. Free play mode is a literal cancer, and I don't want to be a part of it. The end game and the loot and everything else about this game doesn't matter if I can't get to that point because of this mission standing in my way. I just wanted a story and a cool world, and instead I'm just given chores to do. The gameplay and the missions stagnate quickly. I don't see myself logging back in anymore because of how ridiculous it is that they just give you a bunch of challenges and say, go do free play and do this stuff. How does that even qualify as a story mission? How does that qualify as something that a AAA game would include in the final product? Even as a side mission or challenge, this would be annoying, but when it bars the player from continuing through the storyline, it can really turn a player away, which is exactly what happened to me. Frankly, it was just insulting, and I said, fuck this game. I spent about an hour trying to complete the challenges, but when it was taking so long, that's when I decided to just hang it up. Basically, I have better things to do with my time than force myself to do half-baked challenges in a middling video game from last year, even if I am making a video that's gonna get millions of views. It's kind of a weird balance. I understand that hand-holding in games is annoying, but at the same time, I don't like the push towards artificially inflating games with chores in the name of getting good at the game and understanding the multiple tired tiers of RPG nonsense. This game would have been a great action game, but because the game needs to have staying power in order to make as much money as possible, companies build stupid systems into games to try and milk people as much as possible. Anthem is not the only game with this problem, but it is fairly obvious in this instance. Every game has to be the constant online updating money-making model, and that sucks. If you took the engine and the characters and the graphics and the gameplay of this game, but then you made it into an Uncharted style game, it would be amazing. But that just wouldn't make as much money, so boom 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 boom. The beginning of the game clearly has some thought and effort put into it, but that obviously fell apart the deeper you go into the game. The opening cutscene and gameplay got me really excited about the game. I had a lot of fun, but after playing through each of the mission types 5 times, I realized that was all the game had to offer. The mission loop is not about experiencing new things, but doing the same thing over and over again in order to get the best loot. This definitely has obvious Destiny vibes and connections, but frankly, I don't want to play Destiny either, or Borderlands, or Warframe, or the next game to come out in this genre. Collecting loot is just not fun to me. What's the point? I don't care about having the shiniest apparel for my robot boy. I don't want the best gun. I just want to play through a story and have fun. Loot is not fun to me. In a last-ditch effort for some fun, I completed a stronghold. It was alright, but it was the exact same missions as previously, just reused. The boss was okay. Unfortunately, my issue with having a god gun still applied to the stronghold though too. I understand how something like this could be fun, but it's just not for me. Like so many games, this one suffers from the plague of hype and over-expectations. The game is not perfect by a long shot, but I went in with basement expectations because of how everyone was talking about this game, and I did have some fun. If you go in expecting the second coming of Christ, then you're going to be disappointed. The further you get into the game, the more problems become apparent. And for a game that's supposed to retain players for a long period of time and become something that people will play every day, that's a pretty glaring issue. But if you pick it up for like $3 on sale, you're going to get a couple hours of fun out of it, and that's nice. I'm sure there's plenty of more critiques about this game, and I did really want to like it after the first 3 hours, but I can't play it anymore without just getting a headache at just the thought of it. So I'm not going to play it. Well, I guess I'll just play something better instead.